In the aftermath of the president's speech, easily put, this country is divided. What was your water cooler like in the workplace today? Well, divided? Yeah, it's divided in the Congress as well. Two of the most experienced vets in the Congress, both Democrats, on totally opposite sides of the issue on this program last night. Former three-star Admiral Joe Sestak and former Navy Commander Eric Massa. They're in the Congress. They know what it's all about. They've been there. They've done that. You won't find two people more knowledgeable and two people more divided. Listen to what they had to say.
This president, for the first time in the last 8 years, has done something that the last president did wrongly. That president had a chief of staff that said, in Iraq, we do what we must. In Afghanistan, we do what we can. Against the al-Qaeda that struck us? No, this president has said, I can't let that happen. If this president has stood tall for what's good for the nation, and the party is second.
This is not an issue about politics. It's not about an issue about standing with a president, one president or the other. It's about deploying 5, 6, 7 times American military personnel to do what is militarily impossible. And I think that we must raise our voices not as liberals or progressives or conservatives or Republicans or Democrats, but as thinking common sense Americans who have seen this movie before, and we know how it is going to end.
If he says it's in our national security interest, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt. Today, Secretaries Clinton and Gates went to Capitol Hill to talk to the skeptical lawmakers. Gates tried to make the connection, connect the dots between the war in Afghanistan and America's security.
That with a Western defeat, they could regain their strength and achieve a major strategic victory, as long as their senior leadership lives and can continue to inspire and attract followers and funding. Rolling back the Taliban is now necessary, even if not sufficient, to the ultimate defeat of al-Qaeda.
Good to have you with us tonight.
Good to be with you.
There are so many issues here: the money, the troop level, the length, the timeline. Does the timeline, in your opinion, change the dichotomy of this at all?
Not really. I think the president made a mistake. I'm disappointed at what he did. And I'll tell you one of the reasons. There are many reasons. You know, this country is in the midst of a terrible, terrible recession. 17% of our people are unemployed, underemployed. We have a $12 trillion debt. The truth is, obviously, that nobody wants to see the Taliban regain power in Afghanistan. We're all concerned about the destabilization of a nuclear-armed Pakistan. But you know what, Ed? This is a worldwide problem. Where is Europe? Where is Russia? Where is China? Where is the rest of the world? There was a funny piece in the paper today. Sarkozy of France says he is right behind the president. He thought it was a great speech. But no, the French, who, by the way, have health care for all of their people, virtually free college education, good infrastructure, no, they are not of a mind to put more troops into Afghanistan. And that's true for much of the rest of the world. With these 30,000 troops, we're going to have 70% of the foreign troops in Afghanistan. And the president, by the way, also didn't tell us how we're going to pay for this thing. Where is the money going to come from? So I have real concerns about what the president said last night, and I'm not sympathetic at this point to sending 30,000 more troops there.
It's all about the money. You know, I remember Joe Biden. Joe Biden used to go on the campaign trail, and he said, my dad used to say, show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. And I think that's the case in this position right now. Joining me now is California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Congresswoman, good to have you with us tonight.
Good to be with you.
You bet. Last night, you used the word disappointment. That was your first reaction. In reflection, 24 hours later, do you feel the same way?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the more I thought about this effort to talk about wind down by indicating that they will start to bring our troops out by 2011, even though it's qualified, depending what is happening on the ground, just said to me, this is an attempt by the president to satisfy the left, but it doesn't work. It is not credible. And so, yes, I'm disappointed. This domestic agenda and the lack of jobs. We need jobs. We need economic economic development? Do you realize our businesses are closing? Our newspapers are shutting down? We need to focus on this domestic agenda. We're not in any imminent danger from Afghanistan, or determine what our priorities are. And even though you talk about horse trading on two of the issues, we have a broader agenda that's dealing with fairness and equity in contracting and employment. Do you realize that the Department of DOD spends billions of dollars on just advertising alone? You know how much the minority newspapers get? Zilch. Nothing.
Now from the White House Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano. Secretary Napolitano, welcome back. What is your threat assessment when you look at the assessment in in Afghanistan for its propensity to be an Al-Qaeda incubator and the potential for instability in Afghanistan leading to nuclear weaponry or nuclear material ending up in the wrong hands? How do you calibrate the threat assessment from both Afghanistan and Pakistan?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Afghanistan and Pakistan both are key to the safety of Americans right here at home. That is where Al-Qaeda has nested. That is where they train. That is where they plan. And both countries so necessary for the United States to be involved in thousands of miles away so that we are safe.
One point made by Ambassador Rice that the news gods insist we follow up on today.
In Pakistan, where we also are working to reduce and eliminate the safe haven, you have now a government that is actively going after the extremists and actively trying to counter.
A government that is actively going after the extremists and trying to counter them. The crucial point about why it supposedly makes sense to escalate, why Year 9's escalation will be effective even if Year 8's escalation really wasn't. Well, now in Year 9, the administration argues Pakistan is fighting extremists, right? So it makes all the difference. This is why it's going to work this time, right? Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani, right?
I doubt the information which you are giving is correct, because I don't think that Osama bin Laden is in Pakistan.
I don't think Osama bin Laden is in Pakistan. Osama bin who? Where? Here? If one of the arguments for sending 30,000 more American troops to Afghanistan is that Pakistan is supposedly fired up and on all cylinders about fighting terrorists, someone should maybe check with them to see if Pakistan even actually recognizes that Osama freaking bin Laden exists in their country.
And at the same time, the instability in Pakistan and the potential threat to a meaningful breach in Pakistani security relative to their nuclear material. What do we know about those risks?
Well, I think that's why the president was so careful last night to lay out that Pakistan's cooperation and efforts are part and parcel of this whole initiative, because you have to think about this area as a region out of which, like I said before, Al-Qaeda plans. That's where they operationalize. That's where they train. And again, the dangers to our allies and indeed to the United States.
And as we try to differentiate those two, because obviously the conversation today is about an escalation of war in Afghanistan. At the same time, the threat, the nuclear material, and a lot of the Al-Qaeda activity, as it is reported back to us, is
It's important to recall why America and our allies were compelled to fight a war in Afghanistan in the first place. We did not ask for this fight.
We did not ask for this mission, but we will fulfill it.
Arianna Huffington, co-founder, editor-in-chief at the Huffington Post, the president declaring this as war. Do you think he did a good job last night of presenting his line of reasoning for this particular path?
Listen, he's always good in these settings. He was not wearing a flight suit. He did not say mission accomplished. It was a somber speech. All that is good. My problem was with the tortured logic of the speech.
Specifically,
it's exactly what you asked Secretary Napolitano. If the danger is in Pakistan, why are we escalating in Afghanistan? And he did not answer that. And Secretary Napolitano fudged your question, but the truth is that we know from General Jones that there are only 100 Al-Qaeda members in Afghanistan.
But so let's stop there. Let's assume that the information from General Jones is correct, that that Al-Qaeda is already highly degraded in Afghanistan here. At the same time, we know there are nuclear weapons in Pakistan. We know that there are efforts by extremists in Pakistan to acquire possession of those materials. is it not irrational, and did not the president present a path to say, listen, we must be present, as the Homeland Security Secretary just said, to prevent the development of the incubator that is non-existent right now in Afghanistan but could come back, and at the same time be proximate to a theater that is potentially more unstable and has nuclear weapons?
Absolutely, we need to do that. But the question is, do we do that by escalating with troops, or do we do it by escalating with intelligence efforts? I mean, these are like intelligence questions. What are you going to do with 30,000 additional troops? We already have now, when they are there, we're going to have over 100,000 American troops, plus the allied troops. And basically, we have more and more evidence that the more troops we have there, the more hostility towards Americans we have there, the more civilian casualties we have there, inevitably, which does not strengthen our position there in terms of gathering intelligence, what we do need to counter the nuclear threat in Pakistan.